Courtney said, I'm an LGBT activist and a member of NIPSA. And Courtney and I actually went to Dublin last Saturday, mainly to see Panty Bliss, it has to be said, but also just to kind of soak up that atmosphere, because I think you'll all agree, being gay in Northern Ireland can feel really oppressive at times. So after the momentous win in the South, I think what's been spoken about has been people's stories won the referendum. So the stories of people's lives and the stories of the lesbian and gay community in Northern Ireland, and also the stories of their friends and their families, their colleagues and their allies. So I'm going to give you a bit of a story about my life, and you'll have to excuse me if I stumble a bit. This is a doctored speech from yesterday, so I've tried to rearrange it a little bit. Anyway, so I grew up in England in a family with same-sex parents, and I had two mums since I was 2 years old. One of the things that I really remember about my childhood was knowing from a really early age that if anything were to happen to my biological mother, that my other mum had no legal status over my brother and myself, and that made you feel really insecure, and that was purely because they weren't married and they couldn't marry. I remember political activism was a necessity. I remember attending pride marches when there were real political demonstrations and sitting on the shoulders of some very angry drag queens as they demanded the rights that they steadily won over the years. I campaigned when I was at secondary school to repeal Thatcher's Section 28. This was an act which banned the promotion of the acceptability of homosexuality as a pretend family relationship. That was eventually repealed in 2000, so that's how long it took. I attended my mum's commitment ceremony in 1996. I attended their civil partnership in 2006, and I saw their marriage certificate for the very first time this Christmas. They didn't invite me to the wedding. Don't give them too big a round of applause. They said they'd done enough partying, so they just did something between the two of them. But yeah, it is hard to see your parents' marriage certificate for the first time when you're 30 years old and they've been together and wanting to marry for over 20 years. Anyway, now I'm in a happy and secure same-sex relationship, and I quite like to get married as well. So I could go over to England, marry there. I could go up to Scotland or across to Wales and marry there, or now I could even drive to Dublin, marry there. But I know that when I get home to Belfast, that our marriage won't be recognised, and myself and my partner's marriage will be downgraded to a civil partnership. Time and again, the issue of equal marriage has been debated in the Assembly, and with each vote we move closer and closer to a majority yes. But with each vote, the DUP have their petition of concern ready to go just in case. The comments and conversations that these debates provoke can have a really big impact on the mental health and well-being of the LGBT community, as I'm sure you're all aware, and it can feel really oppressive. I only have to remind you of the comments of the Vatican, stating that the referendum result was a defeat for humanity. And as my absolute favourite drag activist said, Panty Bliss said in a Noble Call last year, have you ever come home and turned on the television and there's a panel of people, nice people, respectable people, and they're there having a reasoned debate about you, about what kind of person you are, about whether or not you're capable of being a good parent, about whether you want to destroy marriage, about whether you're safe around children, about whether God herself thinks that you're an abomination. And even the nice TV presenter thinks that it's perfectly okay that they're all sitting around having this reasoned debate about who you are and what rights you deserve. I'm sure most of you in this room have seen the film Pride. This told the story of lesbian and gays support the miners and the trade unions in the Welsh valleys that broke down the initial barriers and challenged the hierarchy of oppression in the 1980s. Well, my mum was at that march, that first Pride march that the trade unions attended, and when I asked her what she felt that day, she said that there was an overwhelming feeling of validation and an overwhelming feeling of solidarity. The trade unions and the lesbian and gay movement stood together in solidarity, and that's what we need to do today. The issue of equal marriage doesn't lie solely at the door of the LGBT activist or the LGBT community. We need our straight allies, we need our trade union allies, we need our family, friends, colleagues. This is an issue for everybody to engage in. So let us send a very clear message to those anti-equality politicians. Your bigotry and discrimination will no longer be tolerated. It's time for change. Thanks.